Whether you're going to create a new garden space or revive an older one, there's a handful of things you'll want to do. If it's a new garden space, you're going to have to remove the turf. And probably if you're going to be planting a butterfly garden or a pollinator garden in that space, the best thing to do is to hand remove the turf instead of using a chemical application. If it's an area that's a high impact area, you're going to want to till it really well to get the area going. And for whether a new garden or an old established garden, it's always a good idea to mix in some new organic matter into the space to help with the plant growth. Doing all these things in advance will ensure that you'll have better growth of your garden throughout the year. And once your garden's established, it's not a bad idea to come in and mulch around the plants. This will help you control some of the weeds in the area so that you don't have to come in and spray for weeds. Once you've gotten your new plants into the ground, it's a really good idea to water them regularly to help them establish, and then to do a really good deep water. You don't want to just run your hose over the top of the flowers because most of that actually won't get to the soil. Anytime you're watering plants, the best thing you can do is actually water to the roots. The flowers and the leaves don't need to be wet, and it's actually healthier for the plants if the leaves don't stay wet. That just encourages more problems. So especially when you're starting your garden, don't forget, water everything in really good, at least for the 2 to 3 days. For a butterfly garden to really flourish, you want butterflies. And if you apply some sort of insecticide to control one of your plant pests, like aphids or mealybugs, it will affect your ability to have butterflies there, and it will definitely affect the survivability of your caterpillars. So reducing insecticide usage is a really good idea in any pollinator garden. It also doesn't hurt to limit the amount of fertilizers you use because your plants aren't going to need a lot, and herbicides that you might use in the area, because all of those things play in and can affect the overall quality and availability of your garden to the butterflies. When you plant your plant really varies depending on where you live. So what you want to use as a nice tool is when the frost-free date is. And you can ask your local garden center and they'll let you know when in your area the frost-free date is. Planting after that date, in most years, ensures that the weather will be appropriate and especially at nighttime conditions won't get too cold for the survivability of your plants. If you're going to start from seed, it's possible to plant a lot earlier because the seeds will come up on their own at the appropriate time as the soil warms. But especially if you're going to be planting potted plants, you're going to want to make sure that it's nice and warm, especially at night. Otherwise, you might have to go out and cover them in the evening so they don't freeze and you lose a lot of your nice foliage. Some other tricks you can use in your garden include things like putting a rock in your garden design. This provides them a nice warm surface that the butterflies can come and land and warm themselves up. It allows them to start earlier in the day then because a butterfly needs a certain body temperature in order to be able to fly around. So once they've warmed up then, they can start instantly feeding and nectaring from the plants, getting a nice early jump on the day. Some other feeding things you may want to consider include things like having a nice moist area of soil. It allows some of the puddling species to go and get salts and minerals up from that moist soil, which is actually good for them and helps them in their mating. Another feeding tip you can use, but this one's a little trickier because it attracts a little more than just butterflies, is you can put out artificial nectar dishes. This would be a shallow dish with something like a scrubber sponge in it or just a flat sponge where the butterflies can come and get some of this artificial nectar. There's a lot of homemade things you can use. Here at the gardens, we use things like a 10% honey solution with water. We use a 10% sugar solution with water that we also add a little pollen to. And you can also just dilute your favorite sport drink. Dilute it to about 1/4 strength, and the butterflies will be able to drink that as well. Just keep in mind, you're going to attract a lot more bees, wasps, ants, flies, and beetles. But again, if you've got a pollinator garden, you want all of those individuals, not just the butterflies. When it comes time to do your end of season cleanup, I recommend you slack off a bit and leave it for spring. It's not a bad idea because we have a lot of butterflies that overwinter. And they'll overwinter in all 4 stages depending on what species they are. So you could have some overwintering as eggs, caterpillars, pupa, or as adults. And if you go out and cut everything back and haul it all away, all you're going to do is haul away all those butterflies that you actually want to leave out there in any one of those 4 stages, so they'll be there the next spring. So hold off from doing your fall cleanup and save it for the spring. Insects are a critical part to our environment. They do a lot of amazing and great things. And even though there's a small portion of them that are considered pests, for the most part, insects are good animals, and they need our help. The more that we can give them good environments for them to live in, the better they'll do, and the more they'll do for us. So please visit Plant.Grow.Fly's page on the blankparkzoo.com's website for more information on how you can help out.